Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Todd Rodden. I'm a certified business and executive coach. I own Aspire Action Coach based here in Southwest Ohio. We're thrilled to have you join us today. If you want to learn more about some of the leading technology, how AI and advances with technology in the workplace are happening in our society today, you came to the right podcast today because we're thrilled to have Bill Magnuson, who's the CEO and founder of NexusBlue, a consulting firm focused on driving business improvements, leveraging technology, and a leader in the autonomous workplace. So lots of new topics for you to consider here, but also Bill brings just a long journey and legacy as a business leader with him as well into this. So you're gonna learn a lot. Take good notes today. So without further ado, thrilled to welcome Bill Magnuson from NexusBlue to the podcast. Take a minute, Bill, if you could, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about NexusBlue and how did you start the business?
Hey, Todd, thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I've been looking forward to it. It's been a great podcast. I watch it myself, and I highly recommend it to anybody that's looking for a good podcast. A little bit about myself. I am the CEO and founder of NexusBlue. Just recently, I got the title Architect of the Autonomous Future. That probably summarizes a lot of what NexusBlue is. NexusBlue is a strategy company that focuses on the business, but how do we leverage technology to improve our business, our workflows, our opportunities? Everybody's talking about AI. AI is a small part of what we do. We do operate because we're a fractional company as well for leadership. So we do fractional CIO, fractional PMO, we do fractional AI. And really, it's about trying to identify the strategy for the business and how does that fit. And what I mean by that is if you're doing a retail business or you're a fast food franchise or a business that's looking at leveraging customer experience, or you're an accounting firm, manufacturing, we kind of help come in and sit down with you and understand what are your challenges, what are we trying to solve. And that's why if you go to our website, which is nexusblue.io, what you'll see on that website, the first line says that we rescue, fix, and reimage business and technology. And the reason we have that there is because a lot of times our network is referral based. So we get a lot of problems that businesses have of all types, all sizes, including large enterprise. But one of the things that we get asked a lot is, hey, I've got a problem. Can you help me fix it? Or we call it rescue. And typically it's a project that either went south or they don't know what the solution is. So we come in and understand what the business need is. And is it something that they really have to get done right now? Or is it something that we can do a little bit more strategic? Then we help them fix the problem. And then we help them reimagine where that opportunity could go, right, in the future, 3 to 5 years. So in a nutshell, we're the strategic group that comes in as a technology support group that works across your business, helps you identify the plans, the strategies, and then we help you with your existing technology partners or new technology partners find the right solutions.
So if I'm a listener in here, how would I know I'm a great fit for your services? Who are kind of your ideal clients?
Yeah, so our ideal client is really the mid to large enterprise. That's probably our ideal client. Now, I'll share why here in a minute. Because I come from large enterprise. I spent almost 30 years in the large enterprise doing very large digital transformation projects, everything from carrier operations like the telco, the Bell Company, through to the contact centers, the large scale contact centers for like JP Morgan, or managing large scale communications, customer experience engagements for companies like LexisNexis, Relics. And in my entire journey, it's been really that same process, which is, hey, we've got a technology initiative. We've got to get it done in a very short period of time. How can you help me fix this and get it done? And I spent a lot of time in the architecture, project management, governance, leadership roles doing exactly that. So a lot of my referral network which most businesses start out, right? They start out with who do you know and who can help me and what can they do and what projects have they worked on? And it's a referral network, right? So we have typically been in that referral space, getting leads and candidates from the enterprises that we worked with and from the partners that we worked with. And then what I saw as part of NexusBlue is how can I help my mom and dad, right? How can I build a legacy for my future for my kids and an opportunity? And we have all these technology changes, and everybody's always saying, "What do we do?" It's always going to be something new on technology. And I said, I really need to come up with a solution, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But how do we support that mom and pop shop? How do we support that small business that's struggling, whether you're one person or you have a team of, and what solutions can we put in place that will help them? So at NexusBlue, we're excited because we're building out a new service offering that's going to enable automation, workflow technologies for the business at the same level that enterprise does. So we're leveraging our enterprise experience and going to offer those solutions to the smaller businesses. And I'm excited to get there.
Yeah, that's very interesting and intriguing because I think a lot with what you hear about with the technology advancements, AI, obviously a hot topic. A lot of this, it's easy for
Mhm.
small business to feel like, oh, hey, that's another category where we could be left behind by the bigger enterprises who can invest
Yeah.
more. So coming in and finding solutions for that, vital part of our business community is key. So I'm curious, Bill, what do you love about what you're doing at Nexus Blue?
Well, I tell you what I love about it, and really, I get excited. Everybody always talks when Bill gets excited, it's because there's a new technology, a new idea, or he's just solved something that no one else has figured out yet. And that's what excites me. And I feel like I'm on the verge of that because with everything we're hearing about AI, and I'm seeing lots of failed projects that they're everywhere. And most of the time, the reason they're failing is because they haven't really identified what are they trying to solve, right? What is that business thing that we're trying to solve? So for me, it's really about not the technology, because we there's lots of technology solutions that can solve problems. The biggest problem that we have in the business world today is how do we solve the business challenges that we're faced with, right? Whether that's I've just got too much work on my plate. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time, right? Those are the three things that I'm sure you hear about all the time, right? And we need those. And so for us, it's about trying to identify what can we do to create that additional time or to help you find new ways of doing it. And it's interesting. I just left this morning, Todd, another session with another business coach who I admire a lot. And she had a little session. And, I think the challenge with a lot of businesses is thinking differently, right? So what I call AI is it's about the mindset shift. If we want to do things the traditional way that we've always done them, keep doing that. But if you want to change the mindset and think about how can I outsource smaller pieces of work to technology, and that's why I say a lot of times AI isn't about building a new tool or bringing something new in. Everybody's doing it and they're going to give you a tool for that. But it's the mindset. How do I really use it in my business to accomplish a task? Let's start with that. Let's get good success under our belt, and then we can expand. And I find by changing the mindset of the organization, whether it's one person or several hundred people, we can fundamentally start changing the game because we're thinking differently, figuring out new ways of sourcing, new ways of using technology that we haven't done before. And it's never a challenge of getting technology to do it because everybody's working on the same problem, right?
Great. Yeah, great. And because I know you personally, I know your passion for what you
Mhm.
do, and that comes out. So thank you for sharing that. So you already mentioned the importance of kind of, especially early on, leveraging your existing network to get the
Yeah.
business launched, to get those referrals. But what have been your other key strategies for growth now, 5 years in with Nexus Blue?
Yeah, so it's storytelling. I was talking to I've had a few good marketers help me recently over the last few years, and quite honestly, it comes down to storytelling, right? The one thing I haven't done well is get on these webcasts and meeting with people and sharing that knowledge. But so that's why I appreciate Todd you bringing me in and starting the journey here. But the other piece of that is trying to use the storytelling to not only tell the story about who we are, but what have we done to help businesses? Fundamentally, I'll go back a journey because my ancestry and history is all about entrepreneurs, right? I don't know anybody in my family that doesn't have an entrepreneurial or a side gig going on or has been doing something along the journey. My father was a big advocate of saying, "Hey, I've got this problem, this customer has this problem. Hey, Bill, go solve this problem, right?" And I'll give you an example. He was in the water conditioning business, and one of the challenges everybody has with soft water is getting the salt to the soft water, right? The softener. So he came up with an idea. I'll just put that saltwater tank in the garage, right? Well, that sounds really easy, but getting that hose all the way to the garage, wherever your softener is downstairs, that's a challenge. So it's multiple examples of that have created the stories that we use now to kind of talk about how do we change the business? How do we shift our approach? And then we put it into social media forms, right? I use LinkedIn a lot. I use X a lot, Facebook. Um, we need to do more YouTube and videos and getting out on Instagram. My son, Charles, who runs Modern Magnus, he's completely video, right? Everything he does is on Instagram and everything else. And, helping him run his business, he's grateful for that, but he's teaching me how to do the other pieces, right? So it's finding people, Todd, how can
Yep.
they help us solve these problems that we're not used to? And I'm old, so I don't know all the technology when it comes to social media and how does the new world communicate, right?
You're a young man, but all of us could benefit from reverse mentoring, like you just talked about there.
That's right. Exactly.
So, Bill, every entrepreneur, and it sounds like you have a legacy, family of entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Everyone's journey has twists in the road, some ups, some downs, hills and valleys. I'm
Yeah.
curious, in your 5 years now with NexusBlue, what's been a past challenge that you and the team had to overcome, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah. Are you talking about this morning or are you talking about the last five
I
years?
said just one. All
Um,
right.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of ups and downs, right? I wish I could say the business is a quick up and down or just a coaster ride and it's good and we're ready to go. I would say the biggest challenge that I've had is overcoming myself, Todd. I think a lot of business owners that I talk to have the same problem, right? It's interesting. You would think that majority of us would be outgoing and ready to go and we're conquering the world, but the reality is we have a lot of imposter syndrome. So I'm a risk of that sometimes because even though I have the experience and the knowledge and the skill set, and it comes off that way, that I can even be arrogant sometimes. But the reality is, I get a lot of insecurity sometimes about, am I doing the right thing? Did I do it 100% correct? And I've learned that it's okay not to be perfect, right? So that has given me a lot of ability to move and a lot of ability to grow the team. And it's about taking a lot of a risk, putting yourself out there and saying, let's see where it lands. And if it sticks, good. If we need to change, we'll move forward. So one of those things that we had to overcome is our own brand name, right? So, Nexus Blue is our name right now, and that's been a year. But before that, it was Buy My IT. Nobody knew what that was. They couldn't remember it. It wasn't sticky. So, listening and following direction and taking risk. The Nexus Blue name change was one of the best things we did. And it accelerated a lot of other things that we were doing. Right. So that is what I call overcoming a lot of things. Right.
Okay, love
But
that,
I
especially.
think we're on the upside.
Love that. And so I appreciate you sharing that personal story around, hey, that imposter syndrome, which we all have
Mhm.
in many ways, shapes, and form, and how you overcome it. And I think you
Yep.
mentioned, it's okay not to be perfect, right?
It
It's
is okay
right.
not to be perfect. Yeah.
I'm surrounded by others who are just as imperfect as well.
That's
All
right.
right.
Yep.
So flipping that around, if you look out the kind of the front window now, what's the current challenge you guys have in front of us? You rebranded, kind of,
Mhm.
changed things, you got some momentum. What are you looking at ahead of you?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about what's ahead because I've gotten some really good partnerships. We've got probably 500 different partners that we work with, but a lot of those are very large software providers and service providers that we've been working with, not to resell their products necessarily, but to leverage them and use them. And what we're designing is a sandbox environment. And that environment is allowing us to model some of these prototypes that we need to be able to help the businesses, right? So we're spending that upfront investment to provide a new uh, service, if you will, that leverages these different applications, which they're very leading structures out there. A lot of people use Salesforce, HubSpot. In the contact center world, they use things like Mitel, RingCentral, Genesys. We're working with a new partner, Wesley Clover, that we're looking very excited about because they bring things like IoT devices and edge compute and so collaborating those in a sandbox environment. And Todd, I do a lot of reach in the university and school districts as outreach, and I try to help those folks find work too. But we're using them as a sandbox opportunity to extend their skill set, build something brand new, and how do we get this done? Very similar to a larger enterprise model, but allowing us to use it for the nonprofits and smaller businesses that we are. So we're building that network, and I envision here very soon we'll have some really exciting news to share. But it's also those partnerships and getting that out to the teams. So, with our fractional services that we offer today and trying to help bring those businesses forward, we're now going to be able to provide them some really unique opportunities, leveraging applications and systems they already know, but putting in some really cool technology to help them do the simple tasks they do today in an automated way, right?
So as you roll out those different services,
Mhm.
what's the biggest challenge to making those be successful for you guys?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges that it's understanding the business, right? So one of our journey things that we do is leveraging transcription data, and I've mentioned this to you before several times, right? It is learning about the organization who we're working with. And we've learned this from the enterprise because when you look at the enterprise, the larger enterprise like Microsoft or ChatGPT, right?
Mhm.
That's an information play, right? They are the largest information providers in the world, and they're just collecting any kind of information they can collect, and they're figuring out ways that the systems can use that information to provide a better service. So we're getting the businesses to think about that as well. So if I'm already talking about it and I'm already interacting and I've already got customer conversations going, if I can transcribe that, I can model that use case. And what that does for the business is it stops them from trying to write everything manually and trying to figure out what it is they do. We can now transcribe it, put it into workflow, build the models, automate that entire workflow with very little touch. And then they get the same experience that they were looking for themselves and accelerate their plans, right? So that's probably one of the most exciting parts of the challenge. It's just getting that knowledge and building out the data sets. And when I say that, because everybody, when they think about data, right, they think, well, I don't have all my Word documents in the right folder. I don't have my financial data in the right space. My accountant tells me all the time, I'm not very organized, right? But with technology, we're now able to do that, right? But it doesn't have to be in the right place to get the right solution. It just has to be crafted in the right way to get that right solution. And that's what we
Mhm.
help people do,
Yeah.
right? That's our challenge is mapping that process.
So Chris, you already mentioned some of the outreach you do,
Mhm.
universities and that. I'm curious, your thoughts around building a team. You're in a field where you're looking for
Mhm.
technical expertise. How do you attract that talent? How do you retain that talent in a competitive space?
Yeah, so a good friend of mine, Melissa, if she watches the podcast, she'll know who she is. But she came up to me one day and says, "Bill, your team is like a team of misfits, right?" And I said, "Well, thank you for that. I think that's a good compliment." And she goes, no, seriously, you're always identifying people who are looking for a new opportunity or trying to identify what can they do differently or a new job, or they're thinking about being an independent or a startup. And I am. I'm always looking for those people, right? Whether even if I'm sitting at Roosters in Miamisburg, I'm always looking at my uh, whoever serviced me at the table, whoever's cooking my food. I'm looking for skill set, people with unique opportunity that have they're either in a certain work field, they got experience, but they want to play in technology too. They want to be a technology expert, or they're going to college, or they're going someplace. It's amazing the amount of people and resources you can find that are just in that transition state and they've got unique skill sets, right? And then once in a while, you'll find a small business owner who is just fantastic, but they're in the wrong job, right? So we can sometimes pull them out and put them into an opportunity. So for me, it's a very little bit of recruiting, because recruiting isn't all that it's made up to be, right? People fill out resumes that really don't represent themselves, and then they come in and you go through thousands of them and you find the right people. For me, it's all about networking, connecting, who knows who, and that's how jobs are made, right? Um, and I remember when I got my job at JP Morgan, I took a brave move and started calling other CEOs and said, "Hey, I know you're in the apparel business, but can you help me find a job?" And the reality was they just said, "Hey, you know what? I know a guy. He's
Yeah.
looking for somebody, and they can help me with this." And that's why I try to do what I do on social media sometimes is say, "Hey, I've got a person. They're brilliant. They're a great opportunity for you. Look into them." And that's how I find my own people, right? I'm always looking for those type of opportunities.
Yeah. And I would, for the audience, I'd echo that. You'll check out Bill on LinkedIn. You'll see him sharing great resumes. Hey, I came across this great person. They're looking for these opportunities. So just a
Yeah.
great example of being a great connector. So 5 years in now with Nexus Blue, what's your dream for the future? When you look down the road, 5, maybe 10 years, where
Mhm.
do you dream about the business being?
Well, I shared, for me, it's about legacy. And so when you look at legacy, and what does that mean in my space? I think everybody knows Deloitte, right? They know Anderson Consulting. They know people who have been around in business for 100 years.
Mhm.
I won't be here in 100 years, but I hope that Nexus Blue is, or something of it is, in the next 100 years, and they remember, who was there and who founded it. I love the stories when Dayton's got a lot of history,
Yeah.
right? From aviation, and you think about the Wright brothers, and everybody has a story that they can tell when they were here and they were starting up, and how it kind of formed into other organizations. And that's my dream. That would be a dream, that if I can build a legacy that somebody remembers Nexus Blue or Bill Magnuson, or my son is running or his son is running the organization in 50 years, that to me is a win, right? So that's a goal, that's an objective. And if I can achieve that, and the organization takes off and flourishes and provides the same level of customer service that I want to provide myself, which is trying to help organizations really focus making a difference, not just for their business, but for the community and the association. That's my desire, right? I don't think a lot of groups are not focused on helping improve society outlook. That's what we have to do.
So, Bill, a lot of our listeners are a little bit newer,
Mhm.
oftentimes in their entrepreneurial journey. So, I'm curious, what have been your keys to success that you'd want to share with them? Another way to think about it is, what do you wish you knew then that you know now?
Yeah, yeah, I think the biggest one, Todd, for me is being afraid to take that first step, and taking the risk that's there. I mentioned sometimes, I'm a believer, and that's going to come out here what I'm going to say, but you get the noises, or the things, the thoughts in the back of your mind, and says, "Hey, I really want to do this. I have a passion for this. This is my desire." Um, Taking that and actually applying it and taking the risks to do it. And I'm fortunate because I've had the opportunity to take that risk with very minor impact, like paying bills and doing that. Some of that my wife takes care of, quite honestly. But the reality is, if it wasn't for the support people, building your network, I would say that's the other one. So not just taking risk. If I could start all over again, I'd build out an organic network. And what I mean by that is make as many friends as you can, whether they're in your field or not in your field. Just make connections, bring into the community, find yourself some organizations to be part of. I was excited last week because I won an award from Technology First for being the Volunteer of the Year, right? And the reason I do that is because it's about connecting and building out a network that I never did before, right? So I would say that those are the two biggest things. Take the risk, make the network, make the friends while you're young. And they're not people you work with, trust me. They're not the people you work with and the people that you're in your organization with.
Yeah.
They're outside of that, and they're the people who, operate. And an example of that is when you walk into a restaurant, you don't know anybody there. Those are all the networking friends you need to find,
Fine. Yep.
right?
Yep. And always be growing that, right? It's
Yep,
really
always.
so.
Yep.
So, Chris, you're in a field that's ever changing, new technologies, new focuses. How do you keep kind of your knowledge base fed and continue to grow that?
Yeah, so I leverage technology to do that.
Shocking.
So a lot of people, you can go look it up. I use a lot of RSS feeds, and RSS feeds essentially will scrape the internet for news articles, information that are, important to me, and what are those trend things that are happening. And those I probably got several hundred feeds that I get every day of news articles and feeds. And I just sit down there and I just scroll through them and say, hey, this is interesting. This is a change. That's one big area that I focus on. The other, I listen to a lot of podcasts, because the podcast and and this is not necessarily technology, but this is using the podcast to be able to identify and listen to them, but also I transcribe them sometimes. So I may not listen to the whole thing. I transcribe it and look for key text that's important to me or things that stick out. I do that a lot, because there's always someone sharing something that is either what you're doing or different than what you're doing, and I take all the knowledge I can from that, right? And I was asked yesterday, even, when I was talking about social media, how long do I spend there? About a half hour, right? On social media, each time. And I actually have timers on all of my apps that say, hey, if I'm on there too long, notify me and let me decide if I want to extend or not. But you got to manage the amount of time you spend and don't spend too much, right? Find better ways and creative ways of doing it.
Yeah, I love it. And putting those controls because they
That's
can,
right.
all those channels are designed to pull you in and keep you there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
So be very specific about your desire. And for me, it really is about, autonomous ways of doing business. Robotics, I have a lot of interest in robotics, quite honestly. With the tariffs and things that are going on in the environment today, it's a lot of uncertainty. But what's for certain is technology will always be evolving, and robotics and other things are coming about that are just mind blowing. The abilities that they have and the capabilities. So if you can use that and start building, areas of response for your manufacturing or for your retail business or for your nonprofit, there's so much you can do that, it's not all about struggling through the day. It's about letting that do the dirty work while you focus on the more strategic efforts.
Yeah, exactly. So, Bill, as we wrap up, our time flies in our
Yep.
discussions like this today. What are the best ways for folks to stay connected with you and to follow NexusBlue?
Yeah, I think the best way for us is to follow our page on LinkedIn, which is NexusBlue, our website, which is nexusblue.io. You can always pick up the phone call and you can call me directly at 614-600-4733 and say, hey, I just have a question. I'm happy to answer those. and see where we can help. But the whole team is ready to engage, right? So
Oh,
if we can help, and you'll see different people from our team throughout, and some of those are employees, some of those are fractional. So I would say use whoever you can, right?
okay. Well, thanks. And again, for the
Yep.
listeners, those will all be in the show notes there. And I always know when somebody is really serious about being a connector when they actually give their phone number out in these discussions,
Yep.
right? Right.
Yep.
So it's committed. So, Bill Magnuson, as we wrap up today, what are you inspired by today?
I'm inspired just because I'm here, Todd. And that's not a corny thing to say because I admire you and respect that community. But I think it's about building this network and building people who can make a difference, and make a change to the environment. And we've connected in a few different situations, but it is really about that. And I think that's what it inspires me to do other things, make that reach, right? And then of course the technology changes, but it really is about that networking.
Uh,
Yep.
likewise, I'll reciprocate that. I get inspired by the connections like we have as well. So,
Yeah.
Bill, thank you for sharing your story, the Nexus Blue story as well. To
Yeah.
our viewers, we're thrilled to have you join us here today. We encourage you to hit the like button, of course. That helps us out, but also subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the Business Spotlight channel so you can receive future messages like you received from Bill Magnuson here today. And again, encourage you to check them out at their website and on LinkedIn. Look at the show notes as well. So with that, thank you all. I hope you all have a terrific day.